So you know how this channel is about D&D? Well, here comes me trying to explain to myself how I got into the long and arduous process of world building, and how I went through the process so you don't have to. Story time. I started playing D&D around the early 2012, back when Roll20 was a big new thing, and to get into tabletop role-playing games, you'd have to come into forums and pray to the dice gods for good roll DM-wise, and schedule-wise. Which to people like me, who lived in the Far East, was near impossible. But I got there eventually. Promise. Had like one game and that game died in like 2 sessions. Fast forward before the VID, I got back into D&D. Unfortunately, I had no one to play D&D with. My previous group, which by the way, miss you, was nowhere to be found, and I was left in an island of empty space. So quiet. So I decided to jump headfirst into DMing, which in hindsight was a pretty, kind of a bad idea. I really should have done that. But first things first, I had to figure out how to start the campaign. 1, I needed a setting. 2, I needed players, and 3, I needed hope. Lots of hope. And optimism. But I knew I had to start somewhere, so I started with the number 1, the setting. Because my knowledge with D&D was so minuscule, I knew that if I put myself into the Forgotten Realms world, I'd butcher every single pre-existing lore that came to be. And probably scare off all the players that jumped into D&D from that. So, I looked myself in the mirror and said, no, you will not. And decided to look around in YouTube for some tutorials about, how to make a D&D world. Yeah, just maybe one.
Maybe that one.
Actually, that tip.
That one looks pretty good. That one.
I have to check this one.
This one.
Oh, I already checked out the other one. It's part of a series. I should check this one out.
Check that out.
Maybe that actually looks pretty good. Of this one. You know what? That doesn't really good. Yeah, that happened. I fell into the rabbit hole of do's and don'ts so much that my initial plan to launch a D&D campaign with randos on the internet got pushed back several months. Down from the planned initial around 2019 to around late April 2020. So, I'm here to tell you that if you ever plan on making a campaign, make like Shia LaBeouf and just do it. Because any starting point is a good starting point. Back to the topic at hand, after I fell into the world building drain, I decided to inspire myself to make a world by hopping into Incarnate, which if you don't know what that is, it's a free online map making tool that helps you build fantasy maps according to how you imagine your world. No, I'm not sponsored. But my map making skills back then were so limited to, oh, this looks cool, that my first map with the world looked like this. Yeah, that's right. Feast your eyes on the full space of my first map and laugh at me if you dare, but this map was glorious. After a little bit of time and some pocket change, I scrounged up enough money to get Wonderdraft, which was another map making software, which allowed me to transform my map from this to this. Look at that. So at this point, after the rambling, you may be asking, what is my point? Why is the video out to begin with? You've seen the title. You know what it's about. It's me telling you to start small in a start town, flesh out and get the feel of the game before you splurge lore into the world, and boom, 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 bada bing, suddenly you have a whole world. A barren whole world. Which canonically in my universe was wiped out via flood and got remade into this. Huh? It took me a long time to figure out where to actually start. A lot of mistakes and a lot of trial and errors, but I got it there. Yeah, I got there in the end, and all I needed was a good base and a loose tongue, a bit of imagination, and eventually, with enough willpower to focus on one small thing before expanding it out, I got into it. I made my first map. Got good. Yep, So, my first tip to all you world builders out there:
just get out and start somewhere small.
Okay, bye.